Hey guys, welcome to another video. Arleesha here. Today I'm going to be giving you an inside look to my sketching process, as well as showing you a few products that I got from Banggood recently. And just so you know, this is kind of going to be a two-part series, and don't worry, I know I said the word series, but I promise the next part's coming very soon. As a matter of fact, it will be our next video on Thursday. So as I mentioned, some of the products I want to tell you about are from Banggood, and these products were sent to me by the company for free, but I'm going to give you my honest opinions, and to be honest, this isn't really a review video, it's a let me tell you about my sketching process video, and I'm going to use some of these supplies too. So the little pencil case that you saw in the beginning was also from Banggood, and I will leave links to all of the materials that they sent me down in the description. We're going to start off with this mechanical pencil. I really enjoy mechanical pencils because you don't have to sharpen them, which is really nice. And both of the two pencils that I got are 2B, so they're softer than your normal HB pencil, softer, and they get a bit darker. The first one was 0.7 millimeters, and this one is a whopping 2 millimeters. So it's a very thick pencil, and I actually really love them both. I really like to sketch in graphite sometimes, especially when, oh, hello little child who needed to show me a toy. Especially when I want to be more expressive and be able to convey a larger range of values in my sketches. And I don't normally work with graphite when I'm going to be working on an actual finished watercolor piece, as I find that the graphite smudges when I add water in a lot of cases, not all the time. But I will do my planning sketches in graphite, and then I will move on to some kind of colored pencil for my actual sketch on watercolor paper. I also have a couple of brush pens that I want to show you, and I will be using them for the final piece that we'll make in our next video. These brush pens are pretty inexpensive, and you can see this first one is a little wobbly. It's a little sad, a little crooked, a little bit of a manufacturing defect there. But it works perfectly fine from what I have experienced. These are both, the two brush pens I have to show you are both felt tip pens, and I actually like that because there's a lot of control. When you have actual bristles, it's a lot softer, and the range of line thicknesses can be more difficult to control. But with these firmer felt tips, it's a little bit easier. The larger one, as you can see, is just a solid felt tip and has broader strokes overall. It doesn't get as thin as the first one, but it does get much thicker, and I really like both of them. I wish I was better at like hand lettering so I could show you some fancy lettering, but I'm just not very good at that. It's definitely not my area of expertise. As you can see here, I'm actually going to be having a little bit of trouble just writing the word large. I just kind of gave up at the end, and okay. This next tool is not actually a sketching tool, but I really wanted to show it to you anyways. I haven't talked about it a lot on this channel, but I really love fountain pens, especially clear-bodied fountain pens like this where you can see the ink on the inside. This is also from Banggood, and I know I haven't talked about the company much, but think of it as kind of like AliExpress, where you can get cheaper, sort of whole stock, Chinese-based goods, and Banggood focuses more on stationery in that category than on art supplies, but again, they have a wide variety of all different kinds of things. This fountain pen here does have a converter, which means that it has a twisty converter. There's a name for it. I don't remember. Corkscrew converter? Something? I don't know. Fancy fountain pen people will know the names of these different converters. It came with it, and you basically twist it to fill and to empty the pen itself. I originally set this up so that I could show you guys the filling, but with the nib still connected to the converter, it actually didn't want to fill. So what I had to do was separate the portion with the nib and stick the whole converter into the ink bottle, so I wasn't able to show you guys the fancy filling, and I was all set up with a nice shot, but that's okay. Hopefully you guys still kind of get the gist of it. I really like this purple J Urban ink. It's very, very, very nice. Most of the time with fountain pens, I use them in my bullet journal. I don't really bullet journal in an official or more structured sort of way. I kind of just go to a page when I need it. I do a lot of journaling and note-taking, and I make lists every single week. I on Monday I go and I plan out my whole week so I can kind of try to stay productive and get things done. And I always use a fountain pen for that sort of thing, as I really enjoy the writing experience. Just working with the nib and the ink is just so very, very enjoyable. The nib on this pen is pretty stiff, which means that it doesn't flex a lot, so you're going to be getting one consistent line weight throughout, pretty much. You can press a little bit harder to vary that a tiny bit, but generally speaking, it's not really made for flowing calligraphy like a softer flex nib would be. I really like it overall. It has a nice flow to it, and it's pretty nice for the price that I paid for it, which was not that much. I hope you guys don't mind this sort of hybrid video of a combination of my sketching process as well as talking about these supplies. I'll have a few more, the rest of the things I got from Banggood, to talk to you guys about in our next video. But for now, let's move on to talking some more about my sketching process. And when I'm first getting started sketching, what you're seeing here was my very first sit down to draw of the whole day, and it was very rough. And usually what I'm doing at this point is I'm just trying to get my hand and my arm moving and to get my brain thinking. So I'm not really jumping into anything special or fancy or anything that I want to look right even at this point. You'll see the eye at the beginning I put way too high and had to lower it. But when I first start sketching at the beginning of the day, or whenever that is, I'm just trying to loosen up and to warm up my body and get ready to actually be able to make marks that I'm happier with and more confident with. And I usually can never jump right into trying to create a finished sketch or something like that as soon as the day starts, just because I'm a bit rusty. It's like you gotta get your body flowing before you can move into other stuff. My sketching usually starts out pretty loose and pretty rough, as you can see here. I like to start with lighter, looser lines to get gesture and form established first. And then once I'm happier with the flow and composition of things, or the overall shape of whatever it is I'm trying to draw, then I will go in and use darker lines. And these 2B, these softer pencils, are actually really great for that, because I can get a lot of variety in terms of lighter and darker lines, and they're really handy for that. What you're seeing here was actually the start of an idea, and I really like this sort of fetal position pose with the shoulder up, and I really had wanted to communicate this idea of, I don't even know how to say it, of seeking comfort and sort of insecurity. Like I've been wanting to kind of incorporate this pose into at least one piece for a very, very long time. This is my little thumbnail sketch that I created, and my plan was to create this sketch and then transfer that over to watercolor paper. And by transfer, I don't actually mean some sort of physical transferring, I just redrew it. And for the actual sketch onto watercolor paper, as I said, I'm not using a graphite pencil anymore. Now I've switched to my coal erase pencils, and I was actually really curious. I wanted to keep the lines for this one black. I wanted to keep them dark. Normally, I want to lose my lines when I'm painting, so I use orange or red or pink, something that blends really well with skin tones, so that once the watercolors are down, you can't see the lines very much, or at least they're very complementary to the tones that are already there. In the case of this one though, I knew I was planning to have black lines, which is not something I do very often, but I did want to do it this time. So what I did was I did my first rough sketch of laying in the proportions and getting the composition how I wanted it to be. I did that with my light gray coal erase pencil, and once I was happy with the general shapes, I moved on to a black pencil. Again, still a coal erase pencil. When I'm sketching, I'm usually trying to think more as if I'm sculpting than if I'm actually trying to just draw shapes. I find it's a lot more effective to think of your piece of paper as a giant block of marble or clay or something that you're going to be carving away at. This keeps three-dimensional form in my head right away, to where if I think about a piece of paper and I go, a shoulder curves like this and a head is kind of round like this, then my forms tend to be a lot flatter and they don't have that sense of dimension to them. So when I start by thinking this is a piece of clay, for example, and I'm slowly going to start to carve out the roundness of things or the angularity of things, I found that I like my shapes and the overall and the overall sketch much better when I think about it as carving or sculpting as opposed to just drawing flat two-dimensional forms. When I did my initial sort of test sketch in my sketchbook, I decided that I really liked it at that particular size. So I decided to leave this one small, which is not usual for me. I usually like to sketch very large, and even when I'm just doing a portrait, I like it to be big. But I liked the smaller size of this one, so I decided to keep it. I want to talk a little bit more about my sketching process, specifically in this sort of sculpting area, and a good way to do that is to just draw ahead, and of course, you guys know I love to do portraits, and hopefully you guys can get a better sense of my overall goals in that sort of carving mindset that I talked about. I usually lately have been starting by getting in the general overall shape of the head instead of starting with even just a circle and adding on the chin and then kind of divvying it up into equal parts. You can do that, but I personally find that my sketches are much stiffer if I start that way, and I like things to feel more organic and like I want the shape language to be conveyed more strongly, so I try to keep it a little bit less structured for myself, even though the head in this one ended up being a little wobbly because of that lack of structure. That's okay. Again, I started with my light values and keeping with my kohl erase because I knew this wasn't going to be a painting. I knew it wasn't going to be something I was going to want to throw a bunch of colors on, so I allowed myself to use black and gray. There's something to me about working with black and gray, whether it's the kohl erase or with actual graphite, that feels very raw and moody and kind of emotional. Do you guys know what I mean? And I just really love that. There's something in the shading of a dark black pencil that communicates so much emotion, and I really, really love that. I decided while I was doing this particular sketch as well that I wanted this whole sketchbook page to be sort of a mood board for the final piece. So in our next video, we're going to do some paint swatches on this same piece of paper, and I'm going to talk to you about how I put the colors together that I decided to use for this piece, and we're going to be able to look back on this sketchbook page as a whole and see the overall mood I wanted to communicate when it came to creating the final piece. And you'll get to see that piece as well. After I had gone in with both my gray and my black kohl erase, I grabbed a soft graphite pencil. This is the Prismacolor Ebony. I don't remember what the actual like softness or hardness grade is of this pencil. I probably showed it to you or you saw it and I don't remember it. I just don't remember. But I have generally found that graphite is much darker, actual graphite, than the kohl erase pencils. That's one of the things that I actually don't like about Prismacolor kohl erase pencils is they feel a bit too waxy for me sometimes. And I can't always layer the pencil marks on top of each other the way I would like to. It gets a bit too waxy. And there's something just really nice and grainy about graphite. I hope that this video has helped you in some way. As usual with stuff like this, I feel like I just kind of babbled a lot. But even then, I really hope that you guys have a little bit of a better understanding of how I like to go about sketching sometimes. My biggest goals often are just to kind of communicate mood and atmosphere, gesture, that kind of thing. So I will see you guys on Thursday for the continuation of this entire concept development, and we will get into colors and the final piece. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye!